Over here are conversations at council with the client.
Oh, ladies, sit down.
Well, there's getting over there. Closest one, I guess, is here.
There was one right there.
I don't know how it works. Look at the,
No, I just advise you, I can hear you all talking at your table. Yeah, maybe you should talk softer.
I'm gonna work on that. Yeah, the young reporter from
You guys need that shirt, right?
Plain Dealer. Yeah, not Adam, but Corey, I guess. You're checking on Twitter and giving your heads up.
I can guarantee Mary can hear all of you talking too.
Ready then,
Somewhat
Judge?
distracting. Not just at your table, at their table too.
Judge, you ready?
Yeah, everybody's set, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. She's at the table.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'll get one.
One of the little ones we should do.
Yep. How are the donuts?
Donuts?
Oh, I knew they were happy. Hey, one second.
Yeah, this one is the female officers.
I will state that when I got on the elevator at the fourth floor, 2 jurors were put on the elevator because their whole group did not fit on another elevator, so they were on with me, and we did not talk about the case. In fact, we didn't even talk about the Indians or anything.
Thank you, Your Honor. No problem here.
Yeah.
Interested was Mr. Hanson, number 3, and Mr. Markman, number 9.
All rise for the jury. Court is in session. Please be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you have a pleasant evening. Ms. Seals, you know where Chickasaw County is in Mississippi?
Yeah.
That's where my family, part of my family is from.
Oh, what part?
I'm up in, near Tupelo.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with that.
So we're going to continue on behalf of the state, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Ohio will be calling Officer Elizabeth Maurer to the stand.
Raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear or affirm something to the substance of perjury that the testimony you're about to give here will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Thank you, Nancy, and the chief. Ms. Hall.
Thank you, Your Honor. First question, can you hear me?
I can.
Officer Maurer, can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Elizabeth Maurer, Maurer,
Where are you employed?
the city of Lakewood.
And how are you employed with the city of Lakewood?
I'm a police officer.
Are you certified as a police officer needs to be?
I am through OPATA.
Okay. How did you obtain that certification?
I went through the police academy and have continued my updates throughout the years as required by the state. I've done it since 2003.
And is that how long you've been with Lakewood?
No, I was in Summit County for 5 years before that.
And what are your duties currently with Lakewood?
I'm a patrol officer.
Officer Maurer, I know that chair's awkward, but if you don't mind, if you could just lean into the mic a little bit when you speak, okay? Mary's taking down everything that you're saying, and so she has to be able to hear it, okay? Thank you, officer. I'm sorry, you said you were with Summit County before. How long had you been with Lakewood?
Since 2008.
And your duties with Lakewood are?
I'm a patrol officer. I handle calls on the road.
What do you mean by calls on the road? Do you mean traffic, criminal, just criminal? What do you handle?
Citizen complaints, traffic complaints, criminal complaints. I drive around in a cruiser, and I am actually on the streets when I'm on shift.
Are you a uniformed officer?
Yes,
And do you have a marked patrol car?
I do.
Were you working on September 15th of 2016 around 12:45 p.m.?
Yes,
Were you called out to I-90 westbound?
yes,
Were you in your marked cruiser in your uniform that day?
yes.
Judge, do you have any tissues?
Right here.
I know this is hard. Why were you dispatched out that day? How did the call come in?
I was flagged down by a motorist that there was a terrible accident on the highway.
So you didn't come from dispatch, you were flagged out by somebody?
While I was talking to her, it was actually coming out over the radio.
Do you remember how it came out over the radio?
No, I didn't hear it. I let dispatch know that I was en route about the accident. She said she had just dispatched it.
Okay. Where did you go to get to the accident?
I was on the overpass, so I just had to travel a couple hundred feet, and I was there.
How quickly did you get there?
Couple seconds.
Where'd you park?
On the on-ramp.
What did you observe when you parked?
The trooper was on the ground. His feet were north and his head were faced south, so he was lying across the lanes of traffic. And there was a large river of blood coming from him.
Did you observe anybody around him?
I did.
Were any of them uniformed officers?
No.
Were you the first uniformed officer on the scene?
Yes.
What did you do?
I had my trauma kit with me. I put my gloves on. I kneeled down next to his right side. I emptied out the contents of the kit onto the ground. I looked at his eyes because he was still there. He was trying to talk, so his mouth was trying to open and close a little bit. And he was trying to breathe. And I tried to slow down the bleeding because there was a lot.
What did you do to slow down the bleeding?
He did not have his uniform shirt on, and he did not have his vest on. I guess they came off when he got hit because they were not near him. So I just had his white t-shirt that I could see on him. I took my tourniquet, my quick clot, and what I call vet wrap, and I started wrapping.
Did you personally know Trooper Velez before this day?
No, I never even knew his name until after the press release came out. I just referred to him as my trooper.
Once you got the tourniquet on, were there other people working on him?
Once EMS came on scene, yes.
What did you do when EMS came on scene?
I stayed by his side. I didn't move. I was kneeling on his right side.
Why did you do that?
Because nobody dies alone. He had a heartbeat when I got there, and after I used my stuff from the trauma kit, I checked his pulse on his carotid, and I didn't feel it, so I started compressions, and I didn't stop until someone grabbed my shoulder, and it was one of my firemen.
At any point, did you leave Trooper Velez's side?
No.
Once he was removed, did you leave his side?
Once they loaded him into the ambulance, I stayed on scene because my sergeant told me I had to take statements.
Do you remember at any point going into the back of the ambulance before he was loaded?
Yes.
Why did you do that?
His blood splatter was up to my elbows that I had to clean up.
When you respond to a scene, do you have a body camera that you wear?
I do.
Can you tell the jury about that, what that's for?
Sure, the body camera records what happens on scene because nobody has perfect recollection, and it helps to establish what happened during an event.
When you first responded to the crash, did you turn it on?
I did not. Unfortunately, I was focused on my emotions and grabbing tourniquets and making sure that he was safe and no other cars would hit him after the fact. They would have to hit me first, so I didn't think about turning it on.
So safe to say that was not a priority at first.
No,
Did you eventually turn it on?
I did once I was done being hands-on with him.
Okay. So when you were in the back of the ambulance, is that when your body camera starts?
I don't know. I know it was after that part of it was done.
Your body camera, do you have the device on you today?
I don't know.
What do you do with the footage when the day is done?
I put it in a docking station and it's electronics. It does electronic uploading. That's wireless.
So you don't have to manually enter it?
No,
Did you dock your body camera that day?
I did.
So, have you seen your body camera footage from that day?
No, I didn't want to look at it.
If I show you just a short piece of you in the ambulance, do you think you'd be able to recognize it?
Sure.
I'm going to show you what's the ground commission approach, the Mount Elf there. I'm going to show you a quick quip of Exhibit 1507. I have bad eyes, so I have to walk back. So just from the still, officer, do you recognize this body camera footage?
Yeah, I do.
What are you doing right there?
I'll try to get the largest pieces of blood splatter off me so I wouldn't contaminate anybody else.
Now, at this point, are you done treating Trooper Gillespie?
Yes.
Officer Maurer, after you clean off the blood, what do you go do?
My sergeant, who is Sergeant Shad, said he needed me to take some witness statements.
So, there's no sound right now. Can you explain to the jury why that is?
No, actually. Sorry.
Do you know if there's a buffering phase for your body camera footage?
There can be, yeah, when a lot of cameras are on simultaneously. Yeah, I can't take a moment to sync up.
Okay. So we're going to play a little bit more of this.
Yeah, there's just one button that we hit. It's not separate ones for audio and sound. One thing. It's just a single button.
No, I have the sound on. Do you remember those two gentlemen?
I do. They were the two witnesses that I gave written statements to so they could write out.
When you say you gave them written statements, what do you mean?
Traditionally, the officer is supposed to write the statement, but I was shaking too much to legibly write anything, so I had them write their own words.
How did you know to approach these two gentlemen?
My sergeant had let me know that just start asking people if they've gotten their statements, yes or no, because he wasn't even sure. So I just asked him if anybody had taken their information and their statement yet.
And at this point, are you in the same median where Trooper Velez was hit?
Yes.
So at that point, are the gentlemen telling you what they saw?
They are. Most of the time when I ask somebody if someone has gotten their witness statement or if they saw what happened, naturally they just start to tell you what happened.
So based on what they told you, did you then go get some forms from your car?
Yes, I don't remember if I got the forms out of my car or if one of the officers had extras that gave me that. I don't remember.
And you handed them the forms. What did you do next?
They were kind of unsure as to what to do, so I just reiterated back what they told me to put down on paper.
What were these guys like? I mean, we can see them on your footage, but what was their demeanor like when you observed them in person?
They were about as rattled as I was. The one was gripping his fingers together tightly. The other one kept running his hands through his head. Their voices shook, my voice shook. They were about as rattled as I was.
Were they able to complete statements for you?
They did.
Kind of short statements, but statements nonetheless?
It was just one page, and the top half is just identifying information, so yeah, it wasn't anything lengthy.
After you took these statements, what did you do next?
While they were writing, I just leaned up against that cement divider, and I was thinking about my trooper. Honestly, I wasn't thinking about anything else. I was looking down at the ground, and I actually found his handcuff key on the ground where the handcuff key landed.
So were these witnesses kept together when they wrote their statements?
Yeah, they were in the same vicinity as me. Like I said, my mind was on the trooper.
Do you remember them talking to one another, planning out what they were saying?
No.
So if we play the rest of this footage, are we going to hear them plotting similar stories?
I doubt it. They're probably going to be discussing how they were traveling and, oh my God, this is what I saw. But it's not going to be malicious in any way. They're just normal human beings trying to work through something they just saw that was terrifying.
I mean, you're an officer, I've been an officer for a long time, and it seems like this was very traumatic responding to this crash.
Yes, and I had to hold it together on scene because people always look to me for guidance because when I had to show up to something, something's wrong and they want me to fix it. So I had to wait till I was back at the station and I cried very hard.
Hindsight's 2020. Was this the best decision, having them write their statements next together?
No, it wasn't. Traditionally, you separate them. Traditionally, you're thinking analytically, and I was very emotional.
But safe to say, at this point, when you're having them write the statements, for the record, I'm pointing directly to the right of the screen. Right over here is Ken Velez.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's still on scene, the man you just treated, when you're taking these statements.
Yeah, at that point they had him on the backboard and they were getting the ambulance and him there, so they were lifting him.
So was that where your focus was?
Yeah.
Okay. So they give you back your statements. What do you do with these statements?
I let Shad know, which is my sergeant, that they wrote out their statements and if I could let them go, if they were needed for anything else. So he had to talk to some troopers, and after he got back, he said that they were free to leave.
So then did you release the gentleman?
Yeah, the three of us basically just leaned against the cement divider and stared at the ground because we were all thinking in our own thoughts.
Do you remember the defendant on scene, or the driver of the car on scene?
Briefly, I did not have contact with him.
Okay. Was that not your role on scene?
No,
Did you observe his demeanor at all?
he just stood there.
Did he seem upset, crying, anything like that?
He wasn't crying. He was looking at his hand. I guess he hurt his hand.
Do you remember him shaking on scene?
No.
Do you remember any marks on his head?
No, I didn't take a good look at him.
At any point were you really near to him at all?
No, it was just, you'd look up and you look over and you see him. So if I look at you for a moment, that was the extent of the observation.
So you take the statements, you've released the drivers, what do you do next?
I went to Lakewood Hospital and I scrubbed my arms some more.
Okay, so were you able to clear the scene then?
Once everything was said and done, Tim Shad, I'm sorry, my sergeant, said I could go back to the station. So I just made a stop at the hospital, which is on the way, so I could use their nice deep tub to scrub.
Now, we get kind of a shot of where you are in this body camera footage. Is this actually in the city of Lakewood?
No,
So is this within your jurisdiction to investigate this accident?
no,
So did you know this wasn't going to be a Lakewood scene when you were out there?
yes,
But you wanted to assist in any way possible as an officer?
yes.
1 minute, you're in.
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
No questions for defense, Your Honor. Thank you, officer.
Yeah.
State of Ohio calls Matthias Burke.
Sir, could you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear or affirm subject to the penalty of perjury, that the testimony about the truth will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. All right, please be seated.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Would you state and spell your name, please?
Matthias Burke, Mattihias Burke,
Where are you employed?
Lakewood Fire Department.
Are you a licensed EMT?
I am.
Are you a paramedic?
I am.
How long have you held those qualifications?
35 and a half years.
Were you on duty September 15, 2016?
I was.
Did you respond to the incident on I-90 westbound at approximately the McKinley exit for the trooper that was hit?
I did.
How many people were in your squad that day with you?
2 in the squad.
What was your role? Were you front seat passenger or driver?
I was a front seat passenger.
As front seat passenger, are you then the writer of the run report?
I am.
Do you recall where you were when you received the assignment?
At the fire station, Warren Road.
And did you ultimately create a run report regarding this transport?
I did.
And does that run report document either automatically or by your input the time of dispatch, time on scene, time of departure from scene, time of arrival at hospital, etc.?
I did.
Okay. In Lakewood, is that automatic by way of computer, or do you have to manually enter those times?
Dispatch enters the times as they receive the call, the time it's dispatched, and when we get there, when we leave to transport to the hospital.
And your fire station was located where?
Warren Avenue in Madison, 14601 Madison Avenue.
Describe the road path you would take to get from your fire station to this scene.
We would head out on the Madison Avenue, turn left, and a quick left on the Warren Road, which is maybe 2 buildings over. And then we left on Warren Road up to Alger, and then Alger is the entrance to the highway right there, which is less than a quarter mile away.
Can you estimate the drive time once the call was made?
Within 2 minutes.
How many other units of law enforcement did you see when you first arrived?
Well, when we first arrived on the scene on I-90 itself, there was one officer treating the victim already down on the ground, a female officer from Lakewood Police. there was someone doing compressions on the victim. It stated that he was a Cleveland EMS personnel. We took over the scene at that time. My partner started doing compressions, and also the truck had responded with us due to the call. On the truck, we also had 4 paramedics.
By the truck, you're referring to the fire engine?
Fire engine, yes. Fire engine truck, and also car 2, which had a paramedic and a driver on it. So altogether, there was 7 of us that were paramedics initially right on the scene. So we did an assessment of the scene and then started doing our treatment.
Any difficulty getting your ambulance where you wanted it to be?
Just as we came down the ramp, where the position of the victim was actually going back east instead of going down west of the ramp, so we had to circle around and then block it. And there was bystanders that were holding up their arms, blocking traffic coming westbound from that point.
All right, so your ambulance comes to a stop, what do?
We get out, car 2 was the first one on scene, so car 2 is the assistant chief's car and his driver, and they called for all the equipment, which is, you know, our jump kit with the drugs and bandages, tourniquets, all the equipment in it. Our Lucas device, which is an automatic compressor of the chest, an airway bag. So we had all our equipment with us as we arrived on the scene, along with a backboard and collar. Brought the cot over with all that equipment on it, and then started treatment of the patient.
Describe the trooper's condition when you first reached him.
Trooper's condition was unresponsive, so he had no response to anything. The Cleveland EMS person was doing compressions on the scene. We stopped him. We initially took a pulse, and there was a pulse. There was a radial pulse, which is in the wrist, and a carotid pulse. So we stopped doing compressions at that time and started treating the victim as we seen. The officer had already put a tourniquet from her kit on his arm, his left arm. His shirt and vest had already been ripped off, so there wasn't anything that we had to remove at that time. So she had put a tourniquet there, but it was still actively bleeding. We applied another tourniquet. We rechecked the pulses. There wasn't a pulse at that time. He was also bleeding from the occipital area, the back of his head. And, you know, you could see that he was actually had some deformity in his lower legs and, you know, was in pretty bad shape. So we applied those tourniquets, reassessed the pulses, and there wasn't a pulse at that time. It was within 30 seconds to a minute later. And we started doing compressions and taking care of the airway. So one of the medics was working with a bag valve mask and doing the ventilations. Another one was doing compressions on the victim. We had the 2 tourniquets on, and then we started packaging them up as best we could. We applied the Lucas device, which does the automatic compression, so we're able to move victims and continue to keep compressions going as we do that.
Was there difficulty establishing an airway?
There was difficulty. According to the medic that was doing it, there was like a tear in the pharyngeal airway, which is the throat area. So you can see a tear in there, and so we had to stop doing the endotracheal intubation, which would place a tube into the trachea and seal that off. And we used what is called a king airway, which just sort of blocks off the esophagus and then is able to give air into the victim's lungs.
Any way for you, given what you were doing during this event, I know subjective time can be different, any way to estimate how long this process took of preparing him for transport and getting him into the ambulance?
Just to estimate the amount of time it took to do all these procedures, get him into the ambulance, and finish up in there. Once we got into the ambulance, we also initiated an intraosseous, which we put a needle into the bone, which can do the same thing as an intravenous needle. Most of his veins were collapsed, and we weren't able to get an IV, so we went into the bone in order to replenish fluids that he was losing. So during that whole time, I would say it probably took about 10 to 12 minutes to get him packaged, do everything that we needed to do, and then be ready for transport.
Okay. By the point where he's in the ambulance, ready to depart the scene, what were his vitals at that point? We
had no pulse, no blood pressure, no respirations. There was no response at all. He did have electrical activity to his heart, which is that the electrical beat is still there. So the heart is beating, but there was no fluid probably in the heart due to the injuries that he had. So there is no pulses that were generated.
So a large amount of blood loss.
Correct.
Describe his vitals during the course of transport. Were you in the back, the rear of the ambulance during transport?
I was in the back the whole time, so
Okay, how many people are back there?
3 of us,
And
3 paramedics and a driver.
do you recall their names?
Joseph Stellick was my partner, which is the driver that drove down there, and he remained in the back with me because that was our squad. And Joseph Colley is also a paramedic that was on the truck at that time. And we needed 3 people to transport in the back in order to keep everything going. You know, one person giving medication, one person protecting the airway, and then we had the Lucas device doing the compression. So we were able to continue our treatment as we went down to the hospital.
Were you able to recover any vitals during transport?
We were not. He stayed in that pulseless electrical activity the whole time, and it was initially a sinus attack, which happens when the brain's trying to tell the heart to pump more blood, so it's a more rapid beat. But as time went on, by the time we got to the hospital, the beat had slowed down because there was nothing there anymore. So, but by the time we arrived at the hospital, you're still in that pulseless electrical activity, but it was it wasn't as rapid as a pulse or a beat, an electrical beat.
What was your hospital of destination?
Metro.
Why Metro?
Metro is a level 1 trauma center. It would give the most chance of survival to that victim.
Describe the transfer of Trooper Velez to Metro ER personnel.
When we arrived at Metro, they actually were all waiting for us at the door. As we came in, we give a full report of what we had, what the traumatic injuries were that we had picked up, you know, head injury, neck injury, what airway we had, what had transpired, how we started in IO, push fluids, did all the treatment that we gave, the epinephrine that we gave, and the airways, the securing of the airway that we did. The splitting of the fractures as best we could, as trying to get them ready for transport to get down there. Gave them all that information, and then they took over the patient.
When you transferred care, where did you then go?
We go to an EMS lounge. It's right off the trauma area there, and that's where we finish up writing the report. So that's where I finished writing the report, and then we come out, and we have to get signatures from the receiving facility. So a nurse in the trauma room would then sign off on it.
Do you recall still being in the ER when he was coded?
I do.
Tell us about that.
Well, when we came back out to get signatures and stuff, within 5 to 10 minutes of our arrival there, they had decided to call, and there's nothing else further they could do for him.
Okay, so he was pronounced shortly after your arrival?
Correct.
Now, as you sit there today, do you recall these times that would be notated on your run report for time of dispatch, arrival, leaving the scene, etc.?
Do I recall those times?
Yes.
Not the exact times,
All
no.
right, if you were to see your report, would it refresh your recollection?
Yes, it would.
May I? And I'm handing you, for the record, it states 1462.
Yes, those times look correct.
Well, can you tell us what they are?
A call was received by our dispatch at 12:46 and 20 seconds. It was dispatched at 12:47 to us, so that's when we got the calls, 12:47. And we arrived on the scene at 12:48, so it was within a minute's time that we had responded up and we were called out on I-90. And we left scene at 1300, which is just under 12 minutes, and arrived down at the Metro Hospital at 1312, which is 1 p.m. in the afternoon if you don't know military time.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
No questions, John. Thank you, sir.
The state will call Mr. Fiorelli, Your Honor.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm, subject to the penalties of perjury, that the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated.
Thank you.
Mr. Fiorelli, can you please state and spell your full name for the record?
Patrick John Fiorelli, Fiorilli.
And sir, are you employed?
Yes, I am.
Where are you employed at?
The City of Lakewood.
And in what capacity are you employed there?
Police officer for the City of Lakewood.
And how long have you been a police officer for the city of Lakewood?
29 years.
And what are your duties as an officer for the city of Lakewood, sir?
I'm assigned to our Special Operations Unit. I supervise our SWAT team and run our training unit.
Were you employed by the city of Lakewood on September 15th of 2016?
Yes, I was.
And what was your assignment on that day?
As it is every day. The day that the 15th, there was a SWAT training going on in Westlake, and I was between Westlake and Lakewood supervising the training and just making sure it was going according to plan.
And did you complete the training that was supposed to be scheduled that day?
Yeah, the men completed the training. I left the training midway through the day to go back to Lakewood to conduct other duties that I had at Lakewood.
And what happened as you were leaving the training?
I was eastbound on I-90 heading back to Lakewood from Westlake, and the radio in my my vehicle, my assigned vehicle, I overheard a broadcast of a state highway patrolman that was struck by a vehicle on the westbound lanes of I-90.
After hearing about this crash, what did you do?
I drove directly to the scene. I exited the eastbound lanes, used the Alger ramp, got back onto I-90 westbound via that ramp, stopped on the ramp, exited my vehicle, and approached where the trooper's vehicle. The trooper was down on the pavement, and there was a lot of other individuals that were there already.
And what was the area that you responded to, sir?
I'm sorry?
What was the area that you responded to?
It was on I-90. The trooper was laying on the berm of I-90 westbound lanes, just between Alger and McKinley on I-90.
And was the location where Trooper Goliath was laying, is that in the city of Lakewood?
No, it's actually in the city of Cleveland.
And when you arrived to the scene, what did you do, sir?
Immediately went over to where they were rendering aid to the trooper to see if there was anything that I could do at that time. There was really nothing that I could have done at that particular juncture, so I started to manage the scene, basically to make sure that no other vehicular traffic was going to be interfering with what was going on. At that time I had all the freeway blocked, and shortly thereafter a couple more Lakewood uniform officers showed up, and I directed them to take care of the traffic, and then I went back over to where the trooper was being treated.
Now, sir, why are you managing the scene, and why is the freeway being blocked at this point in time?
Well, my role there was nothing that I could have done to render aid to the trooper. There was a couple of officers that were there. There were a couple of civilians that were actually there rendering aid to the trooper. And it was more important at that time to make sure that nobody else would get hurt. So my job was to make sure that the remainder of the scene kept safe as we could keep it.
And what is it that you do next, sir?
Just basically, I stayed there, consulted with one of the sergeants to see if there was anything else that needed to be done. And then when the Lakewood fire paramedics showed up, I basically stood by for them in the event that any equipment needed to be carried. Prior to them transporting the trooper, his duty belt was cut off. Seeing that there was a service pistol and other equipment there, I maintained custody of that till I could make sure that it was being transferred over to somebody from the State Highway Patrol.
And what did you do next, sir?
Remained on the scene. The sergeant, once Sergeant Shad had enough personnel down there and I wasn't needed anymore, it was shortly after that I left.
Prior to you leaving, did you have any interactions with anybody else on the scene?
Yes, I did. Through my course of my conversations with some of the other officers that were there to see if anything else was needed to be done, I was advised by another Lakewood officer that the driver of the vehicle was still on the scene, and he directed me towards where that individual was, and I walked up to him and asked him if he needed any medical attention, as the paramedics were there.
Why did you approach the driver of the vehicle to see if any medical attention was needed?
Well, part of my job as a police officer and scene safety is to make sure that everybody's okay, and it was a pretty violent crash, and I noticed that the damage on the the vehicle that struck the trooper had a lot of really bad damage, and common sense would dictate that the driver could be injured in that crash.
Did you locate the driver of that vehicle?
Yes, I did.
Did you inquire as to whether or not they needed medical attention?
Yeah, I asked him a simple question: "Are you okay? Do you need medical assistance?" I found that he, through his conversation, very brief conversation, that one of his hands hurt. I relayed that information to Lakewood Fire paramedic, and that was the extent of my exposure to the driver.
And speaking with the driver of the vehicle, did he relay any information to you about any other injuries?
No, he did not.
Were you able to observe any other injuries on the driver of the vehicle?
I did not see any other injuries.
After obtaining assistance for the driver of the vehicle for his hand, what did you do?
Remained on the scene for a short time, and once the scene was officially secure, as best I could tell, there was officers from the Cleveland Police Department, State Highway Patrol were there, and several other Lakewood units showed up. I left. There was nothing else for me to do there.
One moment, please, Your Honor.
Yes.
Nothing further at this time.
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the state of Ohio is going to call Officer Jamison from the Lakewood Police Department to the stand.
Raise your right hand to solemnly swear or affirm, subject to the notice of perjury, that the testimony about to give here will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated.
Officer Jamison, a couple housekeeping things. There's two mics. The mic in the middle is the one that you're going to have to lean into. I can already see you're leaning back. You're probably going to have to, yep, I know it's awkward.
Okay.
Thank you. Mary's taking down everything you're saying, so if you could just speak loudly and slowly. Okay?
Okay.
Can you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Yes, it's Justin Jameson, Jameson.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Where are you employed?
City of Lakewood Police Department.
And how long have you been employed there?
About 6 years with Lakewood.
What's your role with the Lakewood Police Department?
I am a patrol officer.
Are you a certified peace officer?
Yes.
What did you have to do to become a certified peace officer?
You go through the police academy, and then you take a test, and you're state certified, APATA certified as a police officer.
Do you take ongoing training?
Yes.
What are your duties with Lakewood?
It's patrol, so respond to calls, traffic enforcement, investigating crimes, complaints.
Are you an officer in your uniform on a daily basis?
Yes, I am.
Do you also have a marked cruiser?
Yes, I do.
On September 15th of 2016 at approximately 12:45 p.m., were you working?
Yes, I was.
Were you in your uniform and marked cruiser that day?
Yes.
And when I say were you working, I mean as a police officer for the city of Lakewood.
Yes, I was.
Were you dispatched out to I-90 westbound that day?
Yes.
How did that call come in?
It came in as a state trooper, Ohio state trooper, possibly struck by a vehicle on I-90 West.
When you responded, did you know if that crime scene was in Lakewood or if it was in Cleveland?
I wasn't exactly sure. It's kind of choppy in that area. 90 West, it starts off as Cleveland, then part of it's Lakewood. A short part of it is Lakewood, and then it switches over to Rocky River. So we have a small portion. Frequently we get calls saying it's an accident in our city, and it might be Rocky River, it might be Cleveland. So I wasn't 100% sure until you get there. even when I get there, I'm still not 100% sure. A lot of times an accident investigator, somebody with more experience, has to kind of eyeball it and figure out what's going on, where exactly it's at.
Here today, do you know if that was in Lakewood's jurisdiction?
It was not in Lakewood's jurisdiction.
Did you figure it out that same day?
Yes, I did.
Did you care it wasn't in Lakewood's jurisdiction?
No.
Why not?
You know, it was a severe accident. Any accident, you would not pull up and say, hey, well, it's not in our city, so we're just going to drive away. You would still go in and do whatever you can to help.
Can you tell the jury your observations when you initially pulled up to the scene?
So I pulled on to the Alger on-ramp to 90, parked my vehicle, saw there was some traffic backed up, and there was you saw the trooper lying on the ground. There was a group of they looked like civilians around him, attending to him. There's another police officer that I work with, Officer Maurer. She was there as well, attending to him. And there's some other vehicles ahead. His patrol car was just west of him. A little bit of confusion, a lot going on.
And just generally that area, can you describe it for the jury? Is it 4 lanes? Is it 3 lanes? What's it like through there?
It's I believe it's 3 lanes, and then there is a left median. That it's a wide median, so there's enough to park at least one vehicle there. So it's 3 lanes of through traffic, I believe, and then it's one wide median on the left-hand side.
How many lanes of traffic were open once you got on scene?
I don't. I'm thinking 1, maybe 2. Traffic was backed up. There wasn't much traffic getting through at all. I think at that point they had stopped it, and there were still people kind of stuck just east of where the whole incident had happened.
When you say they stopped it, do you mean the Lakewood Police Department stopped it?
I don't know if it was us or if it was just traffic had stopped. I mean, there was no, the people in their cars saw something was going on, and they stopped their cars right there. I think any reasonable person would say it'd be hard to get around all the commotion, everything that was going on there.
So after your initial assessment of the scene, what did you do?
So I ran up there. There were some people working on. They looked like medical. They looked like they knew what they were doing as far as attending first aid.
What do you mean?
They seemed pretty fluid. There was a gentleman doing chest compressions. I've had CPR training. It looked like he knew exactly what he was doing. He was doing it correctly. There was a female there. She asked if I had a first aid kit. I did have a first aid kit in my vehicle with a tourniquet, which she requested a tourniquet. And I ran back to my car. I grabbed the first aid kit, run back. I handed the tourniquet off to her. And then she asked me, she's like, can you help take off his duty belt? So I went to take off his duty belt. And I'd begun to do that, and then Lakewood EMS showed up, and then they kind of moved out of the way, let them take over.
What was the trooper's condition when you got to him?
It looked like he had some type of traumatic injury. He was non-responsive. He was not breathing.
You don't
As far as
remember breathing at all?
I couldn't see him breathing at all.
Did he have a shirt on? Do you remember?
He had his, I believe he had a T-shirt on at that point.
Is that pretty typical for police officers to wear a T-shirt under everything?
Yes, right.
Was his vest removed at that point?
I don't remember seeing a vest on him at all.
So Lakewood Fire shows up, you back up, where do you go?
I go, EMS shows up, I back up, look around, traffic's still backed up. I see we have, one of our investigators is directing traffic. He has more experience with these crash scenes, so I relieve him from directing traffic. So for about 15 minutes, everything's bottlenecked down to 1 lane. I'm just kind of getting cars through westbound. At that point, the freeway had been shut down westbound. So the only cars we had to get through were the ones that were already stuck there on the freeway. So that took about 15 minutes.
So 2 questions from Anna. Did you stay near the scene of the crash?
Yes.
I guess what I'm asking is, did you ever go out and shut down an exit ramp, or did you always stay there within proximity of the scene?
I did not shut down an exit ramp. No, I stayed on the scene in close proximity to where everything was happening.
What police department chose to shut down the highway?
I believe in our city, it would have been us, it would have been Lakewood Police. And if I recall, I think we let Cleveland know what was going on to shut down at 117th and 90 West.
So it was your understanding this was done with the cooperation of Cleveland?
That's my understanding, yes.
So when you're waiving traffic, who do you think is coming out to investigate the crash?
Somewhere I heard that was in Cleveland. I was pretty sure it wasn't a Cleveland incident, Cleveland accident. So I assumed that they were going to come out and investigate the crash.
Okay. After you were done waving down traffic, what did you do next?
After traffic cleared, I walked back to kind of where everybody was. My Sergeant Shad, requested that I go stand by with the driver of the suspect vehicle, just to stand by with him, watch him for a little while.
When did you become aware that the Ohio State Highway Patrol was coming out to investigate this crash?
I don't know exactly when. I don't think I was sure who was going to investigate it at that point.
Did it seem unusual to you that the State Highway Patrol was going to take it?
No, that wouldn't seem unusual to me.
Why not?
They've handled fatals in our city on the freeway as well. They handle a lot of, more complicated accidents and as well as fatal accidents.
If this was a Lakewood officer down on Madison Avenue, would Lakewood investigate that?
Yes, we would investigate that.
Is that pretty typical in your experience?
Yes.
So you went and stood by how did you know who the driver was?
Various people had pointed him out to me. I think my sergeant was the first one, and maybe somebody else had mentioned it too. I don't remember who exactly.
When you approached him, did you speak to him?
I don't remember. I don't think I really said much to him at all. No.
What was your purpose with standing next to him?
You just kind of want to monitor him. His vehicle was nearby. You want to make sure he doesn't gain access to his vehicle. You just want to secure everything. Make sure everybody stays put, nothing's moved around. You want to limit that as much as possible.
Did you know if his vehicle was drivable at that point?
I don't know. I wasn't sure.
Can you tell the jury what the vehicle looked like if you remember?
It was a hatchback. I don't even remember the make of the vehicle actually. Hyundai maybe? Diesel? I don't know.
Did it have damage to it?
I think the windshield had some damage to it. The front did, yes.
So what did you do with the defendant? Did you place him in a cruiser? Did you sit there with him?
I just stood by on the left shoulder, in the median there, with him, and just kind of monitored him.
How close were you to him?
Probably about 5-10 feet.
Did you observe any marks on his forehead, anywhere on his head?
I don't remember, honestly.
Okay.
For some reason, I'm thinking he had a hand injury, but I honestly I don't remember specifically if he did or not.
I'm talking about his head.
His head?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember anything.
Okay.
Seeing anything.
Do you remember his demeanor on scene?
I remember thinking he seemed pretty calm. He was talking on the phone to somebody. Sounded like a relative.
Did anything about him stick out to you?
I did think that he had very constricted pupils. I remember seeing that.
What's that?
And when we deal with it, typically that means somebody's on opiates, and we see it pretty frequently in Lakewood. And that's one of the when we're speaking with people, it's one of the, it stands out more so than somebody if they were just out on a bright day. It's pretty clear.
When you're in Lakewood, do you write a lot of OBIs?
Yes, we write OBIs. Yeah, I do.
What other indicator did you see of opiate use on scene today?
Objection.
Sustained.
What else did you observe about the defendant that day?
He not much else. I didn't really communicate with him directly. He asked if he can go into the car, I think for cigarettes. I told him no. I explained to him that Cleveland would be, or somebody would be coming to speak with him.
How do you speak with you?
He seemed pretty, all things considered, I think he seemed pretty calm. You know, he did express concern for what was going on, you know.
Did you have your body camera on that day?
I did.
If I show you a short piece of that footage, do you think you'd be able to recognize it?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach the Mondo camera?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 1503.
Do you mind if I stand up so I can see the whole screen? Okay.
Court doesn't mind.
Just have to talk to the jury.
Sure.
Do you recognize this?
Yes, that looks like me putting on my traffic safety vest.
Okay. And where are you positioned right now at this point?
Looks like I'm on the left median there.
And is this, if you know, east or west of the crash scene?
This looks like it's east of the crash scene.
And is
I'm sorry, this looks like it's west of the crash scene.
West? What makes you think that?
Let me get my bearings. No, I'm sorry. It would be, everything's behind us, so it looks like it would be west of the crash scene.
You can have the volume on that, or you can have it on
Yes, Your Honor.
the officer, but you can't have both.
Yes, Your Honor. We're going to turn the volume off, officer. So maybe I'll ask this a simpler way. Are you in Cleveland or are you in Lakewood right here?
Looks like Cleveland.
So if the ambulance is heading west, are you east or west of the crime scene?
Okay. Looks like we would be east of the crime scene then.
Is the median here the same as the median where Trooper Velez was hit?
It's wider in the area where the trooper was struck.
So you said you did this for about 15 minutes?
Correct.
The permission of the court, will fast forward through the traffic enforcement. You are sure, though, that this is your body camera footage?
Yes, looks like it.
Now, where do you position your body cameras? The same that you have it here today?
It would. I actually lost the body camera I was wearing. I lost it. Was attached to a magnet, a little bit lower on my vest. This one's higher than how I would typically wear it.
Okay, so having it covered, is that unusual?
It's with the safety vest. It will cover it if you aren't cognizant of it, and if you don't kind of lift it up and around. You know what I mean? The safety vest. If you're in a hurry and you just put on the safety vest, it would cover your body cam. I mean, that's the whole point. It covers your body so you're visible to oncoming traffic.
So this particular body camera footage here, is this all going to be you enforcing traffic?
Looks like it.
Do you sometimes have does you sometimes upload multiple videos from the same day?
Yes.
I'm going to show you another piece of body camera footage. It's Exhibit 1504. Do you recognize this? It's kind of hard.
Not yet.
Do you remember covering up your camera at one point with your vest at some point that day?
I remember it being covered and uncovering it. Yeah, I wouldn't purposely cover it up. I mean, it's frowned upon.
Is this a new technology for you?
We've had them for I would say about a year. At that point, for probably not quite a year.
So now do you recognize this?
Yes.
What are we seeing here, Officer Jameson?
It's almost, this is like kind of like a mirror image of, like I remember it being on the other side. This is like a kind of a mirror reflection of the incident, you know, of being there. But So right now, it looks like I am just west of where the accident was.
Do you recognize this person in the mid-bottom left of the screen?
Yes, that's in the mid-bottom left. That is Officer Maurer, Patrolman Maurer.
Do you recognize this person directly to her left?
Yes, that is the suspect that was driving the suspect vehicle.
We're sitting here watching his demeanor. Is this what you observed on scene?
Yes.
Do you see him shaking?
I do not see him shaking. I don't remember him shaking.
Do you see him crying?
No.
Do you see him having an emotional reaction to what happened?
No.
Yes. I'm just going to play this for a while. With the permission of the court. Is this the vehicle that was involved
Yes.
in the crash? Okay. Now we can see this median here. Is it safe to say this is longer than 2 car lengths, that this median is this wide?
Is it longer than 2 car lengths?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Does it continue that wide all the way down into Rocky River?
Not all the way into river.
How far?
I don't know, probably about 200, 300 feet. Probably not quite 200 feet now that I think about it. But
Is this the trooper's car here in the mid-bottom left? If you know.
I don't know. There were a few at that point. There were quite a few different vehicles from different agencies on scene. So
Is this where you assisted in treating
Yes.
Trooper Velez? Do you know that individual walking around the screen?
that is Investigator Fiorelli. And next to him is Sergeant Shad, my sergeant.
Do you notice now any signs of emotional distress in that person in the bottom left of the screen?
Objection, Your Honor. Overruled.
No.
Now, officer, at this moment, was that an Ohio State trooper?
Yes, it was.
Took the driver? Okay. And is this at the point where you checked and cleared the scene?
Yes. Or shortly thereafter, I couldn't
Shortly
see.
thereafter? Officer, did you do anything else involved with this crash?
Afterwards, I went to McKinley and 90 just to facilitate some of the traffic that was cutting over to McKinley on North Marginal.
Now, you pointed out that you noticed the constricted pupils, and you were the one standing with this driver. Did you at any point decide to do field sobriety tests?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I was pretty sure that we were not going to be handling this full investigation. I didn't want to, start those.
So was your role just to sit there and observe him, keep him there?
Pretty much keep him, we didn't want to, keep him there and just to make sure he doesn't go back into the vehicle. We didn't, we wanted to make sure everything was secure as far as him and the vehicle.
Did you know if that vehicle was drivable at the time?
I did not know.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, officer. Sergeant Attorney Johnson, I'm just going to ask you very, very brief questions. Okay? You work at Lakewood,
Yes, sir.
and you work with the female officer that was in here before you, tall lady?
Yes, last year we worked on the same shift. Today we work on different shifts, but we do work together, yes.
What's her name?
Elizabeth Maurer.
Okay. Did we see Officer Maurer on your body cam?
Yes.
What did she appear to be doing?
She was sitting in the median.
Okay. We didn't see her shaking in any way, did we?
Nope.
We didn't see her crying?
No.
Can we assume that she didn't care that Officer Velez got killed?
Objection.
I would not assume that.
No further questions.
Anything based on that?
No, Your Honor.
So you may step down, thank you.
Judge, can we interrupt?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to stand up and stretch, you may. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a morning break. We'll be back around 11:15. Keep in mind, don't discuss this case. Don't let anyone discuss the case with you. Don't form or express an opinion. No investigation. No media. However, do get ready for a great weekend. Mentally. You can leave your pads there, and we'll see you shortly. Do you guys still have a union? What's that? Do you still have a union?
Yes. It has nothing to do with it.
Please be seated.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I know we spent longer than I had meant. However, the attorneys have been discussing with the court some of the exhibits in an effort to streamline the presentation for you. Okay, so it was for a positive reason that they have been talking with me, and I think it will reduce some of the trial time without taking away from the value of the evidence. Okay. Do you have to state?
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Ohio will be calling Captain Eric Shepard to the stand.
Sir, if you could raise your right hand, you solemnly swear or affirm, subject to the penalties of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give here will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please be seated.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
It's Eric Richard Shepard. Spelling the last is S-H-E-P-P-A-R-D.
And where are you currently employed?
Currently employed with the Ohio State Highway Patrol over in the Warren District.
Were you always in the Warren District?
No, ma'am.
On September 15th of 2016, where were you stationed?
At that time, I was stationed out of our Cleveland District headquarters.
And what was your role with the Cleveland District headquarters?
I was just a staff lieutenant at the time, and I worked under Captain Chris Zerker, Assistant District Commander.
Were you working on September 15th of 2016?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Are you a uniformed officer, even though you're a lieutenant?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you dispatched out to I-90 westbound on that day?
I had heard radio traffic, and I just self-initiated myself in responding.
Can you tell the jury about that radio traffic you heard?
I was actually on Interstate 71 southbound in the Middleburg Heights area, and I'd heard some odd radio traffic from a voice that I was not familiar with. And just explain how there was a traffic crash involving one of our units, the location. So I immediately completed a U-turn and traveled to the area as quickly as I could.
Where were you when you got that?
I believe I was right in the area of Pearl Road, US 42. I was traveling southbound, and just south of there, but by the turnpike, there's a crossover, so I just hit the crossover and traveled north to 90.
And how long did it take you to get there?
10 to 15 minutes max.
When you got there, were there other units on scene?
Yes.
Were there people from other jurisdictions on scene?
Yes.
Do you remember what jurisdictions those were?
I believe it would have been Cleveland Police Department and then Lakewood Police Department.
Are you aware today which jurisdiction this crash occurred in?
To my knowledge, it's the city of Cleveland.
Okay. So who has jurisdiction over this crash, generally? If it's just any crash, who has jurisdiction in this area where this crash occurred?
The city of Cleveland.
Okay. Now, this particular crash, we have a trooper involved. Why did Ohio State Highway Patrol take over this investigation?
At some point after I had arrived and conversing with some of the units that were there, I had seen the chief from Cleveland Police Department on scene. I had approached the chief, and he and I had a very short conversation, and he had at that point said, we would like you to go ahead and handle the traffic crash.
And were you okay with that?
Absolutely, yes.
Is this unusual for the State Highway Patrol to take a crash with a trooper involved?
No.
Has it happened before?
Yes.
Did you also discuss with Lakewood regarding taking over the scene?
I don't recall having a conversation with Lakewood. I mean, I may have, I just don't recall that happening.
Was there any fighting back and forth about who should have the scene?
Absolutely not.
So once you realized it was going to be your scene, were you the commanding officer on scene?
Yes.
Who else was there from command, if you remember?
At some point, Lieutenant Travis Hughes was there. I believe I was, as far as command-wise, I was the highest ranking there. But I know Lieutenant Travis Hughes was there. At the time, it was Sergeant Rob Gable, who's now a lieutenant as well. There were a few other troopers, investigators, etc.
Did you call in troopers from other posts?
I called, or I requested, what we call our crash reconstruction team. So they come from different areas. I also requested our Office of Investigative Services to be there, so they come from, there's actually units that were coming up out of Columbus to assist. So yeah, our resources were coming from multiple areas throughout the state.
What else did you do on scene? What was your role on scene?
Now, initially, I just wanted to make sure the scene was secured. In other words, the evidence didn't get tampered with, because Kenny was already being tended to. So my main concern was the evidence, making sure that it didn't get tampered with. So we made sure the traffic was diverted. Cleveland Police Department was very good about setting up traffic control well west of the scene, making sure traffic avoided the area. And then again, just trying to make sure that witnesses were interviewed, separated, and I wanted, at the time, I wanted to make sure that the Office of Investigative Services were handling those interviews if possible, just because that's their specialty. That's what they do, is investigate. So.
Your Honor, if I may have a minute.
Yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, my name is John Stitt. I'm going to ask you a few very brief questions. If I ask you anything to understand, you can just ask me to rephrase it, okay?
Yes, sir.
This is probably very difficult for you, testifying in a case involving another trooper.
It's difficult, but we can handle it.
Okay. How long did you know Trooper Velez, sir?
Probably the better part of over 15 years.
Okay. Did you guys work together that entire time?
No, sir. When I first knew Kenny, I was at the Medina Post and he was at the Elyria Post, so adjacent counties. We'd encountered each other. We had been in some sporting events together, but as far as working at the same facility, that didn't happen.
Okay. What kind of sporting events? Things you would compete in, or things you'd like go see a game or something like that?
Nah, softball.
Okay.
Yeah, we played softball several times together.
Would you consider him a friend?
Absolutely. We're all family members, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay. And at some point, sir, the Cleveland police chief asked you if you wanted to take this investigation. Is that your testimony?
Correct.
What kind of things do you consider when making a decision whether to accept an investigation or not? What kind of factors went through your mind here?
Well, then our authority, our jurisdiction, And in this particular case, you know, obviously it happened on a public roadway, which the Highway Patrol absolutely has authority to handle. I also want to look at resources. You know, do we have the appropriate resources, manpower, et cetera, to be able to respond and handle this appropriately in a timely manner? And in this particular case, I didn't think there was any reason that we should not handle it.
Okay. Does Cleveland also have the resources to handle fatal scenes?
I would assume they do. I don't know all the resources that they would have available to them.
Okay. There are more officers at the Cleveland PD than are available at your post, or really the entire Highway Patrol. How many officers are at your post, sir?
At the Cleveland post, at the time,
Yes.
At the time, there was probably, trooper-wise, maybe about 20, give or take, some supervisory staff.
Okay. Were there any concerns voiced by anybody that perhaps it might be best practices to have some folks who aren't so close to Trooper Velez handle this investigation?
I don't believe that was ever discussed.
Thank you, sir.
Captain Shepard, is it true that all officers are brothers-in-law?
In general, yes. Yes.
So, across jurisdictions, can you guys consider each other family?
Yes.
Was this scene handled in the exact same way that you would handle any other fatal car crash?
Absolutely.
Did the fact that the victim in this fatal car crash was Trooper Velez change the way you handled the scene?
No.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
No, Your Honor. Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Are you bringing the more witnesses this afternoon?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
So you're done for the morning?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, the attorneys have been working, trying to organize and streamline some presentation of evidence for you so that there won't be delays. So we're going to stop here. If you're back downstairs at 1:15, Mrs. Smith will call you out. I hope we'll get all of you on the same elevator this time. I hear you had an interloper this morning. Keep in mind, don't discuss this case. Don't let anyone discuss the case with you. Don't form or express an opinion. No investigation. No media accounts, despite the excellent media that we have in the area. And we'll see you back after lunch. Thanks.
All rise.
Bless you.
The next one. Enjoy. The next one, please. Bye. The next one.
Pardon?
So everybody, after lunch.